Hey guys, so welcome back to the podcast. Today's guest is Troy Armour. Troy, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Seamus, how's things?
All good, man. All good. For people that are listening and Troy and don't know who you are and what you do, could you give us a wee explanation of who you are and what you're involved in?
Good word, we, right? But I come from Buncrana originally. Lived there for 25 years. Just one minute. Well, the sound, sorry. Lived there for 25 years, then moved to Derry in 2000. Basically, the move to Derry was because houses were cheaper. Celtic Tiger was kicking off Buncrana at the time. Lived there for 17 to 20 years on and off. It moved around. Then moved to Spain, Abu Dhabi, and now living in Monaco the last 12 months. Just did 2 days ago was a year's anniversary of moving here. So what I do then, I set up an IT business when I was 21. That's the kind of first thing. Kind of grew that across not just Ireland, but into the Nordics. Do a lot in the fishing industry, high-end enterprise level networks, top-end security kind of thing. And then over the last 20 odd years, created a company in the music industry, a digital agency in Derry, which I later sold to the management. And then I have a sport that I call Junkature, that's for kids that are creative.
Fantastic. For people that are listening in, Buncrana is a place in Donegal, in beautiful Donegal, and Derry is a city next to it for people that aren't from are familiar with Ireland. Okay, so Troy, let's take it back to Buncrana. What was it like as a young Troy growing up? What were the early inspirations? What was it like as a young Troy?
Um, Silence. That question is a hard one to answer, Seamus, because I have a love-hate relationship with my hometown. I never ever felt, I still don't probably, that I fit there in any way. Um, don't know what, there's many reasons for why that was, but maybe a lot of them are in my own head, because I do know people from there and I get on really well with them, but it just felt like I was always a round peg in a square hole. Buncrana is a sleepy town, northwest of Ireland, yet don't get much farther away from the centre of Europe, even. And to do any kind of international travel, you have a 4 hour drive before you hit, Dublin International Airport. Uh, but Buncrana for me, look, it's always in your roots. Um, do I go back to it? I've been back one time in a year to see my parents. I don't socialize there. But that's I don't know, that's a lot of small town folk. The way I would describe it to people, I get up to speak sometimes and I say, growing up in Buncrana, if you couldn't kick a ball, you were gay. And I was the local gay kid. Even though I wasn't gay, I was the homo from Maid 7. I remember, didn't know what that meant. Um, just knew as I became a teenager, girls didn't want to speak to you because the guys would go, what are you talking to homo for?
Mm,
And that just actually really that sat with me for a long, long time.
mm,
A long, long time. Um, and I was no good at sport, so that was the thing. Like you stood up every day at lunchtime to get picked for a team. If you were last picked, you come home from school, I played football 5 hours in the evening. My father couldn't understand it. But it was for me, that was my way to get cool. It's like I have to make a team, have to make a team, have to make a team, have to make a team. And it's silly that something so small can have such power over people. But it was, when I say to people now, like sport brings so many things. You get your skills get seen, you get coached. Like, and I mean, you're a coach, you know the value of just somebody pushing you that little bit, somebody taking an interest in
mm.
you, right? Just that, taking an interest in you, seeing something, trying to bring it out of you. You get celebrated in the school, you win medals, you have a chance, people know you. Um, as a geeky teenager, I was the complete opposite. So I would have hidden most corners, and then did other things to try and get attention. Silly things, but like at the end of the day, that was everybody reacts like some way. I say to people, if you cage a tiger, eventually the tiger is let loose, does things maybe that people don't expect. So, but that's kind of my history with that. I think I finally found a home after many years of uh, trying to figure that out, you know. But that's what life was like for me growing up.
Hmm. And for people that are listening, and yeah, I can like not resonate because I was in the sports, but I mean, knowing Buncrana in terms of what it's like, and it's like boxing or Gaelic football or soccer, and as you said, it's kind of like a small town village, and maybe anything outside of that norm then was is really hard to try and fit in. And I suppose you obviously found that difficult and tough then to try and I suppose find out who you were in that space, Troy.
Yeah, do you know what? Right, there was just no forgiveness. Do you know? And I get it too. Like I get it because I've you know thought about a lot of these things over the years. Like you know, one of the things about, I mean, what I would describe as Irishness as I grew up at that time was, you know, was this whole idea of not showing affection. You know, like rural Ireland, you know, we were 500 years of the Troubles, buried emotions. I wasn't that kind of person, so I showed emotions. I liked colors. So I can see why people thought straight away that guy's gay because he shows up in that kind of a space. I remember, you know, when I started traveling around Europe, go, God, these people hug and kiss, and you know, it just showed more affection and didn't matter what colors they wore, and you know, and I just went, God, this kind of fits with me. And I could never understand why, you know, called just the macho-ness or whatever of it all. But I'll tell you this now, Seamus, like, I mean, don't know this is what you wanted to hear or not, but there wouldn't be many days now I wouldn't have come home without a kicking, you know. And that's a thing that most people don't have. Like they get it once or twice or whatever, but ultimately it was basically every day. You went to school in fear. From May 7 to 17, when I finished school at 17, I was accepted to go to Queen's and I didn't go because I was afraid it was going to be more of the same. You know, and like
Mm.
I know now, looking back, nobody in my family gone to college before, so nobody could say to me it was going to be different. But I didn't tell my parents either. I hid all that. Um, but when it came to 2 weeks to go, I just said to my dad, I don't want to go. And he goes, well, you need another plan because you're not going to lie around the house. That's not the way I raised you up. And I said, you know, give me numbers. I'm going to do, I'm going to get an accountancy apprenticeship. And that's what I did. I ended up in an accountancy apprenticeship in Buncrana and I hid away from the world and disappeared for a couple of years. And I hid who I was too. Like, I mean, this is farther on, but if I go back 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I was asked to go back to my primary school and present the prizes, right, for the 12-year-olds. And I remember going down anyway, and it was all good until I got there. And then the principal said, you'll say a few words. And I didn't speak in public. I didn't do an interview at this time, right? And so I got up in front of that class and I went, I couldn't speak, right? And I was so embarrassed. I was like, God, they're 12-year-olds and the teachers were looking at me. And I just turned around to the principal and go, please, can I just give out the prizes? You know, and I felt smaller than the 12-year-olds. And that kind of charged me because I was really annoyed with myself as to figure out why I couldn't stand in front of people and speak. Because it was the same in my companies. I never stood in front of the teams, did a lot of stuff by email. And I remember it was funny, it was a Buncrana lady that I went to talk to, right? And just something popped up online. Just sometimes you think the universe does these things. And I said, God, I wonder, could I talk to her? And it took a month, at least a month. I can't remember how long. It's a month anyway. And I drove an hour away from the house into the middle of a forest right up in the north. Nobody around. I took out the phone, right? Sweat was pouring off me. And I go, I'm going to ring this woman and say, I can't talk to people. What's wrong with me? Right? And it was like so
Just to
much like facing the biggest fear of your life, right? And I rang her up
Mm.
anyway, and she was all calm, right? Right. And she was like, you know what you're gonna do? You're gonna come down and see me next week. And we'll have a chat and we'll see where it goes. So that's okay. The next week didn't do well the whole week going, am I really mad doing this? Am I mad doing this? So I went down to see her, and she talked to me for an hour, right? Talked to me for an hour. And And if this didn't happen to me, I would say this was baloney, right? Well, after an hour, she said to me, look, I have a couch over there. Can you lie down there a minute now? I'm going to do this exercise with you. So I lie down anyway, and she says, I want you to say this sentence out loud. And when you say it, I want you to tell me where you feel it in your body, right? And I'm going, what's she on about? Say something I never feel it in my body. Like, what the hell's she talking about? What if I don't feel anything, right? You know, you're sitting there total skeptic. And the thing came out of her mouth I didn't expect was, she said, I want you to say it's okay to be alone. Right? So I was going, where'd she get that from? Right? So then I started to say, it's okay to be good. I was like, what? Throats of fire, throats of fire. Right? And then she says, all I've heard from you is you felt alone all your life. And so when you get up to speak, you're afraid, your body is afraid that all those people will see you're that little weird kid that they didn't want to know. And so you're trying to project something else and your body just shuts down. And she says, I want you to lie there now and keep repeating that until you can say it clear and loud. And that took 40 minutes, right? And at the end of 40 minutes, she said, when you go home tonight, you will feel like you've been through a car wreck, right? And through to this day, she was right. Went to sleep. And the next day I woke up, I rang with a PR agent. She'd been chasing me for 11 years through an interview. And I rang her and said, I wanted an interview. She said, what happened to you? And I said, I'm not telling you. Just get me an interview. And I did 3 interviews within a month. I did a newspaper, a magazine, and a radio station. And I remember doing that radio interview, and it was upward of 70 men sent me messages or got my phone number and rang me up. One guy from Cork was in tears on the phone going, I was that kid. I would never have the courage to go on radio. Can't tell my wife even, right? She says, I'd love to meet you sometime. I go, man, that's mad, right? And that's just growing up. And I mean, I'm not saying it's an Irish thing, but it's crazy too how things can affect us for the rest of our lives. You know, that was the thing that evidenced to me. And I talk about this poem. When I chat to people now, I use this poem as a reference. And it's a poem that Robbie Williams wrote. I don't know if you're aware of it or not, right? But he wrote a poem, it's 15 years ago now, and he put it on YouTube. And the poem is called Dear Sir. And the poem goes something, hi sir, remember me. I'm the man you said would never be, right? Because that teacher, it was a teacher who told him when he was a kid, you'll never go anywhere dancing and singing. You're an idiot, right? And he constantly told him that over and over and over again. And it's hard to believe that everything that Robbie achieved, worldwide acclaim, money, big concerts, he could entertain. I've been to these concerts, he could entertain like nobody else. He's a pure energy on stage. This teacher still sitting on his shoulder telling him, you're no good. So much so that he made a poem about it. And that has been kind of one of the driving factors of why, you know, I have multiple business now. I still have the IT company and Junkature. Why that purpose of, it's 2 purposes, I think, because circularity in the middle of it is no kid will be left behind, and no material, because we get kids to make things out of trash, will be left behind. It's kind of this parallel. But the whole thing for me came down to, I remember at MIT one night, this guy doing that YE process, the silence intake thing with me, you know, just pushing 8 or 9 times. Why do you do it? Why do you do it? Why do you do it? I love this. Why do you do that? I love that. Why do you do this? But kept on going. Do you cry? Right? You basically go, I told you. What more do you want? And I just said, every one of those kids is me. You know, and that was a big realization too. Like all those things have been part of a journey of understanding, why have I been an entrepreneur? Why do you seek it out? Number one, you're alone. You know, you rely on yourself. You go follow your goal. You have a fire that drives you. But that created a hustle, as I called it. I was a hustler for 20 years, month to month to month to month. You know, grew a business that way, grew another one that way. 2019 was kind of the realization. Okay, can't go on like that. We need to put some kind of a long-term strategy, hire the right people, not just hire for the sake of it, put goals on a page, and understand too how to get people to come around that.
Mm.
And to this, and then leave space for them to grow within it too, because that purpose could be all consuming, not for just for me, but for the company too.
100%. And I think just even like what you mentioned there about Robbie Williams and even all the stuff that you've been through yourself too, Troy. And sometimes it's good, and we just talked a wee bit just before we come on. They look at those things and think, well, if that teacher wasn't on Robbie Williams' shoulder telling him this, that, and the other, would he have created what he created? Would he have been the successful man that he became?
Yeah, no, I think you're completely right. Like, I through what happened to me, and this is not about me being a victim, right? This is about the things I learned from that, and I see, my father would say it to me there times. He started to see it later in life, but he would call it fighter. You're a fighter, but it's resiliency. It's one thing as an entrepreneur. Like, granted, if we go back to the IT company that I set up, I set that company up and I lived with my parents. I come out of an accountant's job earning $3,000 a year. I could afford to make mistakes in it. It wasn't a big thing, right? And I learned gradually as I went and built a client base, and it was recurring revenue, and so it was methodical, and it was a hustle, but it's the way it went. Had some good breaks, some bad breaks, but the other thing then, and I did that again with the company Workhouse in Derry, because it was a very similar type business. That was easy. Once I'd done it once, it was easy. And once one took 16 years, say, to get to a stage, the other one took 4, right? And it was a sellable business at that point. But with a Junkature business, then the way that came about was in a way that I had this kind of global ambition, which I never had achieved before. So there was a lot of different things I had to learn along that way. And that kind of then pushed me to go, how can I do that? But it's never been done before. From day one of the first people I talked to about it said that's the most silliest idea I've ever heard, right? It's a stupid thing. Nobody's going to see trash on a catwalk. You're just daft. Cuckoo was the word she said, actually. And she was a producer who I had a lot of respect for, right? So I was kind of going, okay, well, what do I do now? And then I was like, what, fake it, I'm going to try it anyway. And that's kind of the wherewithal of the entrepreneurs. Like, you get used to no's, right? Because this is the thing too. Anything that you go different to do, or you're just back from Nashville there, for example, you said to somebody a year ago, well, I'm going to sell a gym and I'm going to do. Most people go, yeah, go dream on, lad, right? Right, and because you get then what you have to start to understand is they're seeing that through their lens, so they're seeing that through what they're capable of. It's the same. Like, I met a fairly high-profile entrepreneur, Irish entrepreneur. Like, well, he's in Ireland, but he's from a different country. And I had a great chat with him for about an hour of different things, and then he said to me, "So, what's the ultimate goal with Junkature?" And I said, "Build this type of community." And then his answer was, "Nah, I tried that myself. That doesn't work." Right. So what I have to realize in that moment is, and I said this to him, I was like, "That's great. Didn't work for you, right? Now tell me what you did so that I don't make the same mistakes." And he couldn't get, my answer he didn't know what to say, right? And I said, "I see a different road." So, but I said, rather than me bumping into your bunkers, you tell me what they are, what you did, and then at least I'll know that didn't work for you. Can I try a different pivot on it or try something else? But that's the thing that you have to get to realize is you can't take that personal and go, "Oh, well, he says it can't be done, so it can't be done." Ultimately, so many people try to do whatever it is, the light bulb or electricity or whatever. One didn't do it, and I think the big thing was that everybody was back to the 4-minute mile. So many people tried, and it was deemed impossible that a human being could run a mile in 4 minutes. The minute one does it, 20 do it, and that's the thing with all those. If you listen to all those people out there, they would just get you to stop, and it's not through badness or anything, but it's just through their own experience, their own lens. Anything that's different, the first reaction is that doesn't work.
So here's the thing then, Troy. Like, they have that type of mindset. Not everybody does. So do you feel that growing up in Buncrana, the things that you experienced, the resilience it gave you, the discipline, the determination, let's say the battle scars that it gave you, enabled you to be able to go into that situation with that Irish entrepreneur and just go, well, that's okay. Like, that's your perception. but give me the things that you did that didn't work so that I don't do them because I'm going to make this work. Do you think that those lessons growing up also give you that?
Definitely, Seamus. Like, definitely. Like, and if I go back 18 months ago, like there was a big thing happened in my life, in the business world. Like, I mean, there's different things happen. You get people don't agree with you. Employees aren't the right fit. You know, in 2018, Junkature publicly was in a great place. Just won awards, one of the best events ever in Ireland, and all this kind of stuff was growing rapidly. Had a brilliant revenue stream, all the rest of it. But under the hood, the team was not good. There was a lot of infighting. No direction for me at all. I mean, I didn't know how to lead people, and I thought that all the problems with them, it wasn't all them, right? But at the same time, I did hire bad too. I hired by skill set and not behavior, and I didn't understand culture, so I didn't know what that was, right? I copied it from a book and said, "This is our culture." Baloney. But I fired everybody in 1 week, the whole lot. Fired a customer, so walked away. And one big customer, walked away from one big customer. Right, so went to revenue zero. I was at 700 grand and went to zero. Wrong culture fit, totally. Right, when I look back, it was like. But that was the thing. I come from nothing, so it didn't scare me, right? So I went back, fired the team, right? So it's just me left, fired the production company, fired everybody, the whole thing back to zero, right? And then I applied to do a master's at MIT because I was like, okay, the one thing that needs to change in all this is me. If I can't solve what's going on here, then I can't tell people what I want. And I remember that first time, the first semester at MIT, we did that why thing, but we did culture. And then I started to understand what culture was about. And basically, the culture was just a reflection of who I am. So it has to include all the things that, because I grew up and went through those things, right, that they've influenced my belief system, right? They've influenced my resiliency, other things like so I have a very small comfort zone. I live outside it all the time because as a teenager, I was always outside it, right? So I got very comfortable to that. And in fact, I would say I excel in chaos. The more chaos it is, almost, the calmer I would be. It's when it's calm, I'm like going, something's got to go wrong, right? So so you start to learn those skills. But I remember coming back then, and the first hire I had is a girl called Megan Kelly, and that was hired the right way, the right perspective. And I can see, she's still with me now, how that has influenced a massive change in the company. But ultimately, too, she knows what I'm looking for. She knows how I operate. We align around those things. Doesn't mean we get on in everything, but I have 5 things in a list that that stand for who I am, what I do. So it's who I am. That's the business culture, and then it's the reason too that we exist to do the stuff for the kids we do, right? So but one of those things is leave the comfort zone at the door, and I'm constantly saying to them, there'll be no no's in this company. So if you're asked to do something, you have to say yes, right? And I see there, even in Megan's shoes, there are times going off to New York and like never comfortable on camera, doing interviews on camera, and it's just allowing yourself to be pushed. And then that has allowed other people to come in and share now in that culture and understand why we do what we do. And that has helped us grow. But like that, there are still days when things happen. And you wake up and go, okay, this is a battle I have to go through. But I don't lose sleep over them anymore, and that was the realization of, well, I got through bigger things. I got through bigger things. Like there's things you can't control. You can't control if somebody doesn't agree with you. You can't control that. So if you make a decision and the other party don't agree, well, then they can go and do it. They can go. People taking me to court, right? And then they have to sit and go, well, I believe I'm being equitable in this situation, right? And so I have to decide, am I comfortable with my decision? Why did I make it? Tell my team this is why we made this decision. We have to stand by that, right? And then as well as that, I suppose when I look at it that way, when these things happen, it's a case of being able to say, the people who know me and how I know myself are the things that are right. I can't control what other people will say. The same as the reaction to to how my decisions. But the key thing is this: it's the focus to go, okay, that's where we're going. What we do is we try to bring everybody along with us in that. Not everybody's going to want to go on that journey. Some will for a while and then they'll exit or whatever. But we must maintain the journey, the focus to where we're going. The way I describe it to people, I'm big into sports metaphors, right? Can't play sport, but I love watching it, and I get the energy from it and all. You know what I mean? I'm a massive soccer fan, but golf is the thing. I always used to compare it to golf, and I'd say to people, right, if you know to play golf tomorrow, you start at the first tee and you start aiming for that first flag. And then I say to people, then what would happen if somebody took all the flags out? Right, it would take a lot longer for you to get around that course without the flags. But that's what people do in their life, and that's what people do in their businesses. So they have no goal of where I'm going to go, right? And yeah, you might hit a bunker, and that's you, and it may take you 10 shots instead of 4 to get there, whatever it is. And some of us can play some holes better than others. But ultimately, it's like the same in life. If you don't paint the flags, or in a business, if you don't paint the flags where you want to go, and keep saying to people, no, we cannot do the 5th flag until we do the first one, right? Because people will get distracted and go, hold on, so the 5th one's just coming back here, I can jump over here. Go, if we don't do this in the right sequence, it'll fall down. And then ultimately, as I would say to the team now, and we've done this, is you start in the, you paint the course from the 18th backwards. So what's our 18th flag? What is that one? When we get that ball in, we go, we've done it. And we've painted those steps back, so we now are all aligned around, right, run the first tee or run the second tee. That's the flag we're aiming for. Yeah, we hope to do that in 3 months. If it took 6, it meant that we had a bunker somewhere and we had to get out of that bunker and continue, but we continue. And that's the way I would describe it. It's not, resiliency is there, but you still have to have the flag to go to. There's no point in just bouncing up from things if you're just going to keep into another one. You have to have somewhere to go. I reached that target. Let's celebrate that and now move on, because something I read too on your social media this week was not celebrating wins. And, sometimes you forget that, God, we've come a long way. Even though we said we would be farther on, or we got that over the line or whatever. And it's very easy to get dug into that, that kind of talk all the time. But sometimes you just have to go, God, lads, 3 years ago, we hadn't set foot in our country. Never mind, we're in 35 countries now. And yeah, we're in 35 countries in a small way, but we're still in 35 countries, and that's the bit you have to look at. The small way is we're still there, and it'll grow from there. But if you don't stop for a while and go, we still achieve that, that's still a level of success. Some people don't set out of Ireland at all.
I think that's really important, especially if you've got a big vision and a big purpose. And I took that from the book, The Gap and the Gain, with Dr. Benjamin Hardy and I can't remember his other name now, but anybody's listening, go and check it out. It's a fantastic book, because so many people are focused on the gap. No, we haven't got there yet. I'm not there yet. We still have got so far to go. Where the gain gets you to basically shift your perception and say, right, well, look where we were, but look where we are right now. Yes, we've got a big vision and a purpose we want to fulfill, but look at the growth that we've had. Look at the changes that we've already created. And I suppose it's just to do that is to get you to recognize the growth within yourself. Because if you're always focused on the gap, then you're never going to arrive. And you're always getting that feeling of angst, and something's always missing, and you're never getting to enjoy that journey and the path. Try for people like maybe somebody like yourself, or somebody who is about to start a new business or a new venture, and they have a vision and something that they want to fulfill, but they're just at that starting point. What advice, maybe for people locally, what advice would you give them to be able to create and start or move towards the vision that they have for themselves? Because I'm sure for you, Troy, as you mentioned already, growing up in Buncrana, Donegal, coastal town, small kind of village, but with a big vision. Now you're in 30 different countries. It's hard to try and explain that to somebody in that scenario. So what advice would you give to people who have got something to fulfill similar to yourself?
Look, I need to be honest too, at the start of the Junkature business, I didn't even put my name on the docket to start. I had somebody else as a co-founder, because I was just too embarrassed to put my name out there as being in a business, right? So and that was kind of the way I went. But I had a clear goal at the start, which wasn't what it is now. Like I have to say, at the start, the idea was in Ireland to create a replica of the Young Science Exhibition, but for creative people. That was the original target, right? And so at that time, was looking at Young Science Exhibition and saying, okay, right, that does about 1.6 million in revenue a year. Then between tickets and sponsorship, bit of media coverage, whatever media deals. And then it was like, right, okay, from zero, could I get 10 million quid revenue, right? That was the original goal for me. There was two things in it. That was one. The other one's a mad one, right? Because the other one was, could I do it with $1,000? That was the challenge to myself, right? And I'll tell you why that was about a stupid thing, right? I was annoyed about people saying to me, God, if I have 50 grand tomorrow, I have a great idea to start a business. And then so it was like, I remember saying, you know what? Do you really need the money? What could you do with just your hands, your imagination, your ability to tell a story or get people to come with you, right? So it started out, says, right, I put $1,000 in a bank account. So like, how could I get this 10 million revenue? That was kind of the goal. Now it took 9 years to get 10 million revenue, right, off that. But that grand at the start, I remember some of the things. So one, I had to find a guy from India to build a website, $400. Wrote letters to schools, whatever that cost. It all fitted into the grand, anyway, but I had to make sure that the letter to the schools was enough, that enough of them would take part, right? It was enough of a hook in it to go to get people to enter. I remember then there was a crowd in Derry called ABC, and I don't remember the guy's name, but I went to see him and I said, look, I've got no money, I need to put on 5 events. And he's laughing, you know, and he says, oh, look, 5 events, you're going to need 30 grand at least, you know. And I said, you're not listening to me. I've got no money. I said, but what if I come up with 7 grand? And I was thinking, making a deal with him, whatever tickets I sold on the door, I would hand him the money, and I was kind of estimating, right, at a tenner each, could I sell 140 tickets? That was the start. Could I sell 100 tickets, you know, 5. So ultimately we shook hands on 9 grand, 1,600 an event. Jesus, it was mad, 1,800 an event. It was mad experience altogether. He just started laughing. He said, you know what, it seems mad, I have to come along and be part of this. And look, what happened was 400 people turned up at some of them events. So you're all of a sudden you were making cash, you know. Now, no clue at all what we're doing. Absolutely no clue, right? And so that first year, that was kind of by the skin of your teeth, you know, pants on fire, great thrill, Seamus, altogether, like absolutely great thrill, like you know, making things happen, you know. I made lifelong friends, met that guy in India, Prabhu, who designed that web app for me. That web app went live at 9 o'clock. I remember it was flooded with people, but by 9:30 we had a double the size of the server. And it was all done for $400. And people go, that's impossible nowadays. It's not, it's the same thing. The thing is, when you have no money, you have to solve problems by being outside your comfort zone. That's the thing that people hate the most. Like Bezos chats about where does stress come from? It doesn't come from doing the things you're comfortable from. It comes from doing the things that you don't want to do. So I realized myself, when there's a decision I don't want to make, that's when I'm in a stress mode. I'm like, don't want to approach this, don't want to give out to this person, don't want to tackle that. That's the stress. So what happens at the start, I say, in a business is if you don't have the money, then you have to be outside your comfort zone. So like, it's like that, going to say to somebody, I have no money, but I want to do these events. That's another thing I would advise people to do too, is up front, call it out. Don't hide behind it. I've got no money, but I want to do this and I want to go on this journey. Where can we come to a place? It's unbelievable too what people would do for just to be part of something, right? And the passion of what you're trying to do has to come across. But what happened then was, so completed 1 season, and no sponsorship, right? It was all derived from the tickets or whatever bits of money come in through that. And I remember then I guessed the email address, and that's another thing I would say to people too, is you need to get comfortable with reaching out to people. So I guessed the email address is Moya Doherty in Riverdance, right? So it's riverdance.com. So I basically put in Moya underscore Doherty, Doherty dot Moya, Moya Doherty, Doherty Moya, M Doherty, Doherty M. I put in everything that you could think of, right? Could possibly be that woman's email address. And then you get undelivered, 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 and one delivered. I was like, so I know her email address is now, right? That's that one. And then 3 days later, her PA phoned me and just said, she's fascinated by what you're trying to achieve. She would love to meet you. And I remember going down to meet her, and I had one goal in mind, and that was to stay in the room. Because the thing is, if you go with an ask that's probably, maybe it's too big sometimes for people at the start, and you get a no, the relationship's broken, right? That's gone, right? So I went and said, how do I stay in this room? So the goal for me was mentorship. You know, could I get access to her team, access to her once every 2 months, that I could learn? That was basically it, learn. And also, I came from a place where I bootstrapped every company, so they're all grown by revenue. So I said to her, my number one focus is revenue, right? Now, if you know anybody, let me know. And so, in fairness, she turned around to me and says, I know the guy that did the deal for Who Wants to Be a Millionaire in Ireland. It was $1 million revenue or $1 million sponsor from Air at the time. And she sent me in to meet him, and he got me a sponsor for 25 grand. And that became 1.7 million. It was over 4 years. It was 3 years later. And that was, you know, the kind of proof of how we did grow over that time. We reused the money everywhere. But it's like that. If I look back, if I hadn't guessed that woman's email address, might never signed that deal, might never have got to the next one. Also, that person gave me a lot of validation because people knew who it was, you know. And then the advice she gave too was good. So she said to me, like, you're in hotel rooms. If you don't get out of hotel rooms, you're never going to get the sponsorship you want. You know, them big sponsors are not going to come to Hudson Bay and alone with their executives and their clients. So,
it's a big thing, Troy, isn't it? That's a big thing there. It's a good point because it's also proximity. It's getting around the right type of people, and getting those connections in that network that's going to help you.
Yeah. But Seamus, this is the thing I'd say to people, right? I talk about this other times now, is this, right? I have done that so many times in my life, right? And I've had 9 out of 10 not answer, right? But I've had the White House answer me. You know, I went to meet Joe Biden, all because of an email I sent to say, you know, I went on looking who's the PAs and whatever, get their names and then go, right, it's whitehouse.gov or whatever. I'm going to bang every combination of that person's name to that email address and see what happens. And one Sunday we're lying on the couch and the phone rings, unknown number, and the wife goes, who's ringing you on a Sunday? I just drive her mad. And I answer, and this person says, hi, can you hold? And the next thing, a lady comes on, says, hi, this is Jen from the White House. Joe Biden's over visiting you guys in Ireland next week, and now he's managing a band. She's like, we would love you guys to come along and play some music and get to meet Joe. And you're there going, like, what the hell just happened, right? But it was the same, like that band at the time. I remember, you know, Ireland beat Bosnia or whatever to qualify for the Euros, and everybody's out celebrating. I'm there going, right, what's John Delaney's email address? I'm going to guess it. And my email to John Delaney was, right, you've qualified. Now you need a song for the Euros. I have the boys to do it. 2 weeks later, we're sitting with John Delaney. He's like, right then, lads, let's do it. Then we're in Paris 3 months later or 4 months later. We're living it up at the Irish Embassy. And I mean, it's sometimes those are the golden nuggets that we forget. You know, like, everybody's just a human being. That's the other thing, right? Somebody said to me one thing there was, just remember, everybody takes a poop. That's a leveler, right? So sometimes we put people on pedestals and go, oh, can't talk to them. Right? But the thing about it is this, it's like, we're all just human beings going through similar journeys, right? You know, that's the way it is. There's no snobbery in it. The reason you mightn't get an answer from somebody is that they might not have the bandwidth that you don't know about. They just mightn't be at a place in their own personal lives where they're taking inbound anything at the minute. It just mightn't resonate. So there's a whole lot of reasons. But you have to keep going, and it's funny. Sometimes the ones that come back are the ones you least expect, and you go, my God, what kind of a door has this opened up? But from starting out from scratch in Buncrana, those are the things I would take. The things I would say to people is, you don't need any money. That's the first thing. You don't need any money. And you don't need the massive big vision. That'll come. You basically need to go, what is it I'm trying to do here, even in a small way, to just get off the ground with as little risk as possible to me and to my so you run out of money, you know, in your own personal life, you'll have nothing to live on. But then what I'd say then about big visions is, and this is all I'd say about that is, that's down to how much pain you can take. That's the way I would describe it, because you will go on a journey of, you know, self-doubt, negativity around that's impossible. The minute you say to somebody you've had global in your business, you're going to sacrifice family because you're going to have to travel a lot. You're going to sacrifice personal lifestyle. You might be living out of a hotel room. You're going to be spending money on that, on the business. It'll not be, you know, putting your feet up playing golf in the night. You'll a lot of things that you will go out the window and you just don't realize. And you know, and I say to people, it's how much pain are you willing to take on to get there? Because no business grows in a straight line. Like it, you know, you yourself too have to self-develop. I'd say to people, because I do believe you cannot go into a room, like I'd be raising money there, different times we raise different investments, and for a year couldn't raise any. That was because I wasn't ready. I wasn't tuned the right way. I wasn't saying the right things. I hadn't gone up that level to be able to walk into a room and say to somebody, I'm raising too many quid. Are you interested? And then it's the next level, can I raise 5 or 10? Go into a room, and when you say it out loud, people go, he believes it, so I believe it. You know, and that's working on yourself all the time. You know, people read there going, oh, Mark Zuckerberg walked in and raised 50 million, but you don't see what behind that went on. You know, that's the way that is.
And a big successful trait that I noticed in yourself, just even talking about the emails and talking about all those different things, is not a fear of, there's no fear of being rejected, because you have to have no fear of being rejected to be able to send all those different emails and they walk into those rooms and do all those things. So there's maybe not no fear, but probably a lot lower than a lot of other people.
God, I never thought of it that way, but because a teenager went through so much rejection. Yeah. You know, that football team every day was a rejection by your peers. So I'm not saying to become immune to it, but maybe you're right. I never thought of it that way, but you know, I'd see there are some people in the team that would get frustrated with another no.
Well, most people,
I would get over it quick. I get over it quick and move on. You know, I don't know why that is. Maybe that is just used to that. You know, I've dealt with it before, so my body's comfortable with this is what'll happen. Now I think one of the things with a team then is convincing them that just because that guy said no, again, it's through their lens, you know, all this kind of thing. There's a quote that I heard that Walt Disney's wife used. Well, she said it, right? So it was the opening of Walt Disney World, as I understand. It's all myth, so I don't know how real it is. Opening of Walt Disney World, he's passed away before it opened, so he wasn't there. And they're walking around, and one of the executives said, you know, it's a pity that Walt isn't here to see this. You know, and the wife turned around and says, this is here because Walt saw it. You know, and that's the thing. And that story goes that he went to 300 odd banks and 300 odd said no until one said yes. And that's the thing of the keep going, the keep going, the keep going, the keep going, the keep going. Or the same, like, it's not just about that business. I watched that movie, The Founder, and I mean, you don't know if these are how close to real life they are, but the way it's told in that, you know, when he discovers McDonald's, I mean, he's obviously got a string of failed ideas behind him. He's selling milkshake machines at this point. When he discovers McDonald's and he comes home and he goes to the wife, I've seen it, I've seen the future. And then she's like, again. Aye. Right? Right? And then that's the first negativity starts at home, because that's the place where you are, right? And especially if you've got 10 of them racked up and it didn't work, or you have 10 no's, you know, and even my wife would say to me, is like, when's somebody going to say yes? Because, you know, they're not immune to that the way I'm immune to that, right? And so it's the same with the team. You know, eventually people go, like, well, they start to take on board that feedback. And sometimes that feedback can be for the wrong reason. That guy mightn't have any money. And so rather than him admit that's the thing about when you go to chat to investors, people tell you need to chat to that guy, he's loaded. And then you go, and then that person just dishes everything for half an hour, and you're going, bloody hell, what a mind-numbing experience, because everything I'm doing is wrong according to that person. And you think, oh, they're not going to give me the money. If your team member's there, then the team comes away and goes, geez, that's terrible. You know, the same. I remember when I had the band, I remember sitting in 2FM one day. And I had a new team member with me at that point, with somebody working on that business too, and she was there, and I never told the band this. Still don't know to this day, and I doubt they'll listen to this podcast, but with the whole thing structured out, we knew Ed Sheeran's album was coming out the same day as ours, right? I'm tone deaf now. I manage a band, but I'm tone deaf, but I'm about the money, you see, right? So I was like, we have to drive our own PR. So the best we can't beat Ed Sheeran. The best we can be is second to him, right? Now, we didn't realize was the Bollocks was taking out 2 albums, 2 singles that day, Castle on the Hill and Shape of You. So the best we could be was third, right? So at the end of the day, what happened was this here. I remember getting into RTE, and the guy sitting there, and this new girl was with me, and we're listening away, and then so the head of RTE, he comes in, and he sits down, and he goes, we're not running that song. And I go, why not? And he goes, because it's shit. Right? That's what he said. And the one just goes, what the fuck now? And so I'm there and I'm going, right then, I have to rescue this because we built a whole thing on how we're going to make this happen. And so we start chatting for half an hour, and then this is the whole vision of it. This is the way we're going to do it, and so on. So he starts coming around to the idea to the point where then he starts making recommendations going, you know what? He says, I know Mark McCabe, who did Maniac 2000. Let him remix it. Let's get him involved. We'll do this and we'll do that and we'll do that on. So I walked out with a better song than I walked in with, right? But at the end of the day, if I went back to the band and said, song shit, well, so they're just going to die.
Mm.
You know, so it did. I remember, and I said to him as part of that, I says, I want, the chart opens on a Friday morning, the chart's announced on a Friday morning or whatever, the song's got on a Thursday night at midnight, now it's all on Spotify. On Friday morning, I want the guys on the radio for 11 o'clock interviewed. So I had to be number 3 that morning, right? Because I wanted them to go on the radio and go, it's not bad to be second behind Ed Sheeran. That's the most we could do, right? And so I remember at 10 to 11, their album went to number 3 because it was going up the chart the whole time, right? And they went on that, and the rival they say, but like, it's looking away. You know, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes too. But another person would have died when they heard the rejection.
Yeah.
I didn't. I stayed up to it and said, you know what, we've built a whole thing here to launch ourselves off the back of this. I can't leave this room unless this guy gets this on radio, right? And it's 2FM's was the biggest radio station in the country. I needed his backing, right? I needed the interview, I needed all them bits and pieces. And at the same time, I remember those boys, if I had come back to them, I'd have killed them and said, you see, the song's shit. You know, it was his lens again. He didn't see whatever it is. And sometimes people react to things and go, it's different, it's not going to work. But ultimately, it did. You know, we made the remix was maybe it suited his audience better. But that prolonged, that shot off where we're trying to go. And in that, I only managed that band for a year. But in a year, there's a band from nowhere, right? Nowhere. They played Crow Park, Aviva, Orgas Theatre at 3 Arena. The only band ever to do that. They made 4 TV shows, toured America, Australia, right? Played for Joe Biden, played the song for the Euros, 1916 centenary. It was unreal, the stuff that we're involved in. And I remember the boys used to say to me, you know, I remember we went to see this band for the Christmas party, and the boys were saying to me, that's the target, that's the target there, that's the target. That's the band, if we can get to their level. And I remember we were out for a smoke. I don't smoke, but some of the boys who went out for them for the smoke, and the other band were out, and we're all chatting and all the rest of it. And you know, and then the boys were saying, you know, them boys were saying, oh, we're flying, right? Because I'm all about the money. So I said, what does that look like in numbers? This is the thing I hated about music industry. Nobody would tell you, right? Because you didn't know where the target was. And so they're looking around each other and they go, I think we did about 160 this year, right? And my boys just got silent. And so then the man turned, wait, what did you do? Right? And they went, well, we're at least 250. Right? And so the other the other man said, well, what are you doing? What are you doing? Right? Because it was like, you know, they're the new, well, how the hell could you get to that kind of money, like 20 grand? Well, what are you doing? And, you know, my boys were seeing them as the success on the other side. And, you know, there's challenges in that too, but just want to say something about the band thing. That taught me a lot about that resiliency stuff. Going with your gut. You know, I met those lads. I knew nothing about music. Seamus, I don't. I'm tone deaf, right? I couldn't tell you a difference in a note if somebody played two of them there now for me. But I saw a niche and I was like, how can I market this? And that was like Joe Biden was one of the things I did, and your man John Delaney. But it's like that, you know, luck favors the brave. You know, it is sitting down. And I remember the very first meeting took 3 months for them to convince me to do it. And I remember saying to them, right, because they were school teachers, I was like, we need money. And they're like, well, how are we going to get it? I said, well, I'm not putting it up, right? So we're going to earn that in a month. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go on Kickstarter, right? And I knew very little about Kickstarter at the time, but and I remember them come back to me going, oh, Troy, look, the band's going there all the time. The most it gets is $3,000. And I said, well, we need 50 to get started because you need to get out of them that school job. You need this full time. We're going to do it right. And I remember we sat down and I started formulating a plan. So this is what we did, right? Took out, there was 6 of them all together, and I says, right, I don't know if people know this or not, but at the time, I don't know if you can still do it or not. At the time, you used to be able to go down to RTE and get into the canteen. You could spend the whole day in the canteen, right? That was open general public. You just had to go through security and say, I'm going into the canteen, right? So you get into the canteen. So I had them in shifts, 2 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 2 at night. And their job was find Hubbard, John Murray, Brian, whatever, find any one of those DJs, Miriam, whatever, rock up to them and say, hi, I'm from the band Shaolin. We're doing this. Can we get on your radio show or your TV show or whatever it was, right? That's the first thing. We're going to do that for a month. Number 2, we took out the rich list of Ireland, right? We started at the top. The top that time was Dennis O'Brien. Like, does anybody know him? No. Does anybody know his granny, his mother, who cleans his dog, right? Then we guessed the email address, we wrote them down, right? Such says they know such and such a one. Dennis Desmond, we wrote them all down, right? And then we wrote a heart plug-in email. So we started sending them out. So that was all right. It took a week to get the John Murray show on RT1. At this point, we got about $8,000 of the 50. And the way Kickstarter works, if you don't get the 50 grand, you don't get anything. So we got the 8, we're the $8,000, which was family and friends. And I remember the boys ringing me, they were in RT, they said, look, we met John Murray, he's going to put us on the show tomorrow morning. Happy days, right? So I'm in Letterkenny, and I get up early, I'm driving through Letterkenny, I'm on the radio, and Stefan was the guy, and he came on the show anyway, and he's all agitated. He's all excited. And John says, what's going on? He says, oh, just got a great phone call there. You know, guy pledged 5,000 to our Kickstarter, right? And I'm looking at Kickstarter like, why is he lying? Because there's no 5,000, right? But anyway, on chatting on the John Murray show and all the rest of it, and then he came off and I rang him and he said the first thing he wanted to know was how did I get on? I said, you get on great and all. And I said, you didn't need to tell a lie. And he goes, oh no, man, you have no idea. He said, I was in the green room and Dennis O'Brien phoned me. And he says, I love what you are doing. I'm pledging $5,000. Is there anything else I can do? And I said, I hope you said something. He said, I did. I said, because he owned Today FM. Can we get on Today FM now? So we got on Today FM that evening, right? And it just started to snowball from there. Brilliant. And those lads were at 60 grand in no time, right? And that then was like funds. I mean, still a record and everything for a band to raise money, but that was still, and that was funds straight in the door. So that's the thing. With no money, we got 60 grand in a month. No money. And in Kickstarter, you're not giving away equity. You're giving away like something of yourself. So, you know, friends and family paid for basically a call out on whatever, or access to your first product, your first t-shirt at you paid 50 for it instead of 15, signed by somebody or whatever. You know, there are ways to get money if you really want to get started, and even if you did in smaller amounts, but like I had 6 people and I put them to work, we executed like a machine. And it's funny that, like, I guess Dennis O'Brien's email, I've emailed that man maybe once a year over the last 10 years or since that. He always answers. And it's advice about something or connecting with somebody or and that's all I ask him for. Don't ask him for anything else. It's basically, I'm trying to do this. Do you know that guy, or can you help me with this or whatever? And even last year I was down here in Monaco and his yacht was down at the show, and I just sent him an email going, "Are you down? Or is just the boat here?" And just the boat was there. But like that, I've never met him in person. But that's the way it is. Sometimes it is just reaching out to somebody, guessing an email address to see how you get on. But things like Kickstarter is a great way for people to, if they don't have money, if you really want to do it, really want it, there's ways of getting it. There's ways.
100%. And just listening to everything that you said in the podcast, Troy, that's what like about hope that people that are listening, and especially people in entrepreneurial space and in business, take away is that drive. Well, that drive and the resilience and the determination and the attitude that is, I don't give a fuck what you say. I know where I'm going. I know what I'm doing. I
Yeah.
know there's a different route. I know
I'm
that.
walking in now. I know you're probably trying to finish up, right? Because probably we're chatting too long, but there's something I do want to say. I want to get this across, right? But because this is where my journey came to then, and that was a realization that you are a product of your surroundings. And that then is the reason why I had to leave. Because, like, I mean, I remember saying to my wife, I don't want to go back to Ireland. You know, we were in Abu Dhabi living, that's where like, when we were going to leave there. Like, and I said, and the reason I didn't want to go back was there's two things. Was one, the belief system that I need around me is the people who believe in global projects at that level can reach 1 billion people. And two, the access to capital. And like, you know, Donegal is an incredible place. I mean, it's incredible place to live, and so is Derry on the border. But you do need to then say, right, okay, you know, I brought it to this level, which is a level appropriate for where I'm at now and the surroundings I'm in. I need to go find the next surroundings with the people and the culture and the outlook that fits with where I want to go next. So that's the thing I say to people, like, well, you know, you could start at this and get to a point, and this is the thing of sacrifice too. You know, like in Derry, I had a great house and all the rest of it, and I now live in 100 square meters. But I'm here for another reason, and this is the sacrifice now that I've had to say to my family, this is what we're going to do for the next period of time, because this will help propel us to where we want to go next.
100 square meters in beautiful sunny Monaco.
Still 100 square meters. So the thing is that you have a daughter, right? So you know what that's like. But it's like, I mean, when they're grumpy, a grumpy teenager, like I have to say, I really enjoy hanging out with her. But that's the thing you have to do in 100 square meters. There's no escape, right? So normally what happens then, I'm home alone this week, but normally what happens is then they're involved in your team's calls because they hear everything that's going on, right, and so on. But it's a different thing. But one of the things I would say about the community that we have here now around us is they're people who've exited global businesses, people who are currently in them and growing, you know, into the gazillion year or whatever. And it's not all about just the money too, but it's soaking in ideas and mindset and thinking that they did and how they overcome things and how they grew to the next step to be able to get into a room and go, well, I need 25 million, and people go, okay, well, I can do that, you know, because they're totally confident in the way you portray yourself. And it is, you know, somebody said to me last year, says, you're not the wee boy from Donegal anymore. That's the way you have to look at it, because if you go in and start telling that story, then that's different. You're now an entrepreneur, a global impact entrepreneur who's going to impact the lives of 1 billion kids by doing what you're doing. And, you know, and it is the story you tell yourself in your head too, you know, has a whole lot of a bearing in that. But surrounding yourself with like-minded people that have an ambition. And look, this is the thing about these journeys is there's so many different pathways, not all of them. You can do a lot of the right things and still not make it, you know. But that's a challenge. There's that fear all the time too, the fear of I will fail, pushing you on. Anyway, sorry, you were wrapping up, but I just had to get that in there. It was like part of the reason, you know, if you do want to go beyond, like, I mean, so many Donegal people are out in London or New York or wherever, you will learn from the people there too. I'll give you another example. It was just, we do business with a global company now, and we were asked to put in a day rate, right? And I think the team put something forward at 400 a day. And I had to just say, look, I mean, that was fair, right? But I go, whoa, that company's headquarters in Rockefeller Center in New York. They do 80 billion in revenue. If you send them a quote for 400 a day, they'll go, what are we hiring here? Because they charge 10 grand a day, right? But if you were living in New York, you would send that out at 4 grand, not 400. It's just you're limited by what you see around you and go, well, most people here charge 400 for the day or 500, whatever it is. So that's what we should charge. And hold on a second, we're sending that to a global company that are used to 10 grand a day. We don't need to be 10, but we could be 4 or 5. And that's the thing about, you have to get out of that environment to create the other environment you want to be in.
Yeah, because the perception of what they're thinking of you then is like, well, it mustn't be that good.
You get into the bucket right away of no value.
Yeah, 100%.
That's they just think it's no value then straight away. So then you're not valued, and you wonder why then you're not getting that same thing. So but look, that's another hour for another day maybe.
There's a great quote on that by James Clear, and he says, "Environment is the invisible hand that shapes human behavior," and it's so true. And if you're in the wrong environment, then you're going to conform to that behavior. You're going to conform to that way of thinking. You're going to conform to the belief system, and you're going to get that result. And it's crucial to take yourself out of the environment that you're maybe in right now. It's not helping you get to where you need to be in order to get into the right environment. Before we finish, Troy, the podcast is called Conversations That Matter, and I always ask every guest a question. If you could have a conversation with yourself at any time and tell yourself something, maybe right back when you were in Buncrana as a kid, maybe going through one of your toughest challenges, what conversation would you have had with yourself sooner?
I've thought about this before, right? I can't say I've been asking for, but I've thought about it before. But the one that comes to mind for me is, and I was in this bucket, right? So the result of a lot of that stuff we talked about in the first 15 minutes was low self-worth. And so the way I compensated for that was trophies. So I surrounded myself with stuff that I thought showed a level of success or whatever. That was done for other people, not for me, or maybe it was filling a void in me or whatever. But the conversation I had with myself starting out, if I was 21 again, is to say, you don't need to show any of those things. You don't need a trophy to show you've got value and you created value. That I'd say is the biggest lesson. Like I love now, I don't have a car anymore. Cars were a big thing for me. I used to love my car, right? I had 23 cars in 23 years or something, right? But one of the things I live in here now, I'm surrounded by so many people with so many supercars and all the rest of it. And as I decided to live life without a car, right? My wife has no car either. And that kind of drives her a wee bit mad because she hasn't caught up with that change to me. But it was I just became tired of what the car represented for me. And then when I looked at it, I went, okay, that car is maybe used 10% of the week. That's it. And then it's tax and insurance and the tires and the oil change and the whatever, the cost of the car, these payments and all the rest of it. And then I remember, so whenever we chose to live in Monaco, we made a list. I read a book at the time. It was a guy I met at MIT, it was a guy called Warren Rustan. Guy in his 80s now, wrote a book, Design Your Life. And I remember sitting down with that concept and saying, right, what do we want and what do we want? We're leaving Abu Dhabi. We kind of a blank slate. We don't know where to go. What do we want? And so the things that I wanted were, I didn't want a car anymore. So I wanted to live in a world where I could get around on foot or by bus. And in Monaco, it's 200 euros for the bus for a year. And it runs 6 a.m. to past midnight now, right, in the summertime. There's one every 10 minutes, you beep on, you can go wherever you want, or you can walk. It's 10 minutes to the casino from here. So number two was I wanted an hour plus hour in the morning of the time in Ireland. So that meant that at 7 o'clock in the morning, when we get up, the office in Ireland doesn't open until 10. So I have 3 hours of no phones, no anybody that I can have peace and quiet. So that was another thing I wanted. And then I wanted to be surrounded by a community that would understand what I'm trying to do. And it wasn't a case of them giving me money or anything. It was a case of them just understanding, right? Because the more I could suck in from them, the same way as when I met the more I could suck in from her experience, from the things that she got wrong or whatever. So the more I could experience from these people, or then the stories they would say is, well, this is how I sold my business for 150 million, right? Let me see, could I plug into the same kind of things and learn that pathway? How could I see that vision? And one of the things about the business sector that I'm in. This is another thing that you should be conscious of. Like, ultimately, to get the value, you need to sell your business. So one of the things, our business sector is entertainment, media, and sports. So it's in the same sector as UFC or Formula One or whatever. Basically, it's people competing around which you sell tickets and media rights. And so those businesses are valued at eight or nine times their revenue, not their profit. So that means that every million of revenue that I add, that creates an extra 8 million of value in the business, right? So that means that all the time too, the more I grow, I see a rapid increase in the other side. So ultimately, and the stuff you learn here is, look, you can learn it anywhere, but it's just with a concentration of global entrepreneurial people here. It's funny, you bump into people, and then I'm a chatter, right, as you can tell. But like, I bump into Michael Flatley and says, Michael, how's it going? I'm just landed from Donegal, right? And I have a whole 10 or 15 minutes going on. Like, sure, where would you meet them in the street? So I landed here last year, saying this, right? The first email I sent was the Consul General in Monaco is Michael Smurfit, like one of the most famous entrepreneurs in Ireland. So I sent him an email. I'm basically here off the boat, like it's like Ellis Island, but 200 years later. And a couple of weeks later, it took 3 weeks, he come back to me and says, have coffee with him in the boat next week. I was like that, so we made that decision then, and then we had to get my daughter into school. All those things came together. We came here, and in a very meager way, and says, right, how can we fit in here at the lowest echelon? So we're not taking on big risk or anything. And then it's reaching out to people. And it's like that, you build that ability to chat to people over time. I say that's I'm 28 years in business now. I've learned to talk to people, learn to get out of that comfort zone, and just even saying hello on the street to people, the same Eddie Jordan. You see these people, right? Like, George Russell lives 2 buildings down, right? And I haven't got the gumption to talk to him yet. But at the end of the day, that's the world you live in now. So if you do want to see them, they're there. It's going up and saying, hello, this is me, this is what I'm doing. Love to have a chat to you about it sometime. I'll buy you a coffee, whatever. But you have to put yourself there.
Yeah.
You have to go get it. You can't, I said to somebody, I can't sit in Derry and go, well, nobody here gave me the money, or nobody here helped, and nobody here pointed the direction. That's why I failed. Failed because I didn't get up and go, I'm going to find it, wherever it is.
100%, man. Troy, it's been a fantastic chat. It's good to catch up with you again and have a conversation. There's a lot of value in that podcast. And I know we probably could have went on for another hour and a few different topics for sure. And maybe we get round 2 rocking, maybe in Monaco, you never know. But for people that are looking to support your vision and get in touch with you and maybe follow the journey, where's the best place to find you, Troy?
LinkedIn is the best place to find me. So I'm very much a LinkedIn poster or whatever. But find me on LinkedIn, Troy Armour, or the website of Junkature is www.junkature.com.
Fantastic. Cheers, Troy.
Brilliant. Jim, it's great to chat to you. Gee, that hour